President Trump has signed into law a bill aimed at helping terminally ill patients. He signed the so-called Right to Try Act. Yesterday, during a ceremony at the White House, the new law gives terminally ill patients the right to seek drug treatments that remain in those clinical trials. The president says that he thinks hundreds of thousands of lives could be saved as a result of this legislation.
And now here to discuss more on this controversial law, legal analyst Saman Nasseri. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Talk to me a little bit about this for those who may not understand exactly what this means.
So, as of right now, some states have laws that allow people to take experimental drugs if they are terminally ill, as long as they get approval from the FDA first.
Okay.
This bypasses the FDA. So now all states, anybody, anywhere who's terminally ill and can afford it, can go ahead and take experimental drugs if they believe that's going to help them, or the drugs have passed phase 1 testing with the FDA.
Phase 1, phase 2, clinical trials can take years and years for a drug to finally hit the market. What kind of medicines are we talking about here? For which illnesses exactly?
So we're talking anything from a spectrum of terminally ill diseases, from cancer to ALS, and anything that's past phase 1. So as long as it's past phase 1, the bill allows for you to go ahead and either contact the pharmaceutical company, take part in a clinical research trial, but it's something that you would have to do on your own. You can go ahead and do
So
that.
you would do this. How does this involve insurance companies, or insurance companies don't help at all?
Usually insurance companies don't pay for a drug that's not FDA approved because they can't. So that's part of your plan. If it's not FDA approved, insurance companies
will this change that though?
There's nothing in the bill that says that it has to change it or any funding has to be there. So usually this is for people that are going to pay out of their own pocket unless they get approved to be part of a clinical study, whereas the pharmaceutical company can pay you or give you the medication for free.
I wonder, my uncle had cancer and he ended up passing away, but during that time that he was fighting it, he was willing to try anything. All of us were just looking for anything, whether it was covered by insurance, not covered by insurance. Having said that, what I am concerned about is if people start to get their hands on things that maybe don't work, how will malpractice lawsuits now come into play with this? Because if you're touching something, you're getting involved in something that's not FDA approved, then what's going to happen if it works or it doesn't work?
Right. So the big thing here is how far will the doctors get involved? So if you come to your doctor and you say, look, I want to try this medication. I've heard that it works from XYZ, whose family member had cancer too. I want to try it. The doctor's not going to prescribe it. The doctor's not going to give you a prescription for it. It's not FDA approved. The doctor might say, I'll do some research on it and get back to you, but from a malpractice standpoint, for a doctor to be safe, they need to cover themselves and say, I don't know the outcomes of this medication. It hasn't been tested. I don't know what the side effects are going to be. You might not be the same. It hasn't been close to tested enough. So I'll be surprised if doctors get fully involved and start prescribing or recommending medication.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because the right to try, it's all great, but I mean, the fine print is critical here because, like you said, the insurance companies may not want to mess with this, the doctors may not want to mess with this, and quite frankly, if the insurance companies don't get involved, this is, again, something for people who have the money and the wherewithal to do it. Most people, you know, illnesses don't discriminate against income, so the people who don't have the money, again, out of luck yet again with this?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest arguments against it is they call it the right to pay instead of the right to try, and people are going to have to pay out of pocket for these medications, and then on top of that, possibly pay for their own health care if there is side effects from this medication that the doctors might not take care of, insurance might not take care of.
So it's a good thing or a bad thing? How does normal Joe Schmo sitting at home watching this, how do they interpret what this means?
I think it's too early to tell if it's good or bad. I think obviously experimental medication is a good thing. I think in the long run, people should have access to experimental medication. I do think there needs to be some sort of standard there, though, so that public can have access to it as well.
All right, Saman Nasseri, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Got it.
Thank you.